Have you ever felt like you've come so far, and yet, somehow, you still don't know where you're going? You, a Sagittarius who once blazed with passion, chasing every horizon with fire in your heart. Now, somewhere in the quiet middle of life, you feel something shift. Not a breakdown, not a collapse, but a still, aching tiredness. Like the things that once thrilled your spirit have turned into distant echoes. If you're listening to this right now, maybe you, too, are standing at that quiet turning point. The moment where journeys no longer begin with your feet, but with a question rising from the deepest corners of your being. Who am I if I'm no longer running? And maybe, just maybe, this is where your real healing begins. Not in the next destination, not in something new to chase, but in the stillness. In the remembering. In the returning to the purest part of who you are. So today, I want to invite you. You, the Sagittarius who's carried strength like armor for so long. To pause. To sit. To breathe. Because maybe, what you've been searching for all this time was never waiting at the end of a path, but has been gently whispering from within. There once was a person. Maybe a man, maybe a woman. The name doesn't matter. The age doesn't either. All we need to know is this. They were a Sagittarius. From the time they were a child, they were never quite like the others. While everyone played in the backyard, they were staring at the sky. While adults chatted about practical things, they whispered questions into the wind. What's out there? Why am I here? Is there a place calling my name? And so they grew. With a blazing heart and a soul that refused to stay still. They learned quickly, loved deeply, wandered often. Every time life felt too small, they packed a bag and left, without hesitation. They didn't fear solitude. They feared being trapped. They feared a life with no mystery left to unfold. For Sagittarius, freedom isn't a choice. It's instinct. It's oxygen. Their ruling planet, Jupiter, is the giant of the sky. The cosmic symbol of expansion, wisdom, and faith. Its flame burns in every Sagittarius like a sacred torch. A constant urging to move, to seek, to believe. But then, one day, maybe at 45, maybe 52, they wake up, look out the window, and the flame feels dim. They're not sad. Not exactly happy, either. Just still. Like every journey they took was a dream. And now, they've finally woken up. The maps are still there. The suitcase hasn't moved. But for the first time, they don't want to go. Why have I been running so much? I've gone so far, but have I ever truly arrived? That question didn't come from their mind. It came from somewhere deeper. Somewhere sacred. Somewhere they hadn't listened to in years. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, let's call her Lila. She was a travel writer. For over 2 decades, she roamed the world. She sipped tea in Istanbul. Watched sunrises in Kenya. Meditated at a monastery in Nepal. Her blog had thousands of readers. People thought she was living the dream. A true Sagittarius, wild, free, untamed. But around her 50th birthday, she stopped writing. Not because she ran out of ideas, but because she couldn't feel anything anymore. On a trip to Oregon, Lila rented a tiny cabin in the woods. She meant to stay just a few days. But the days passed, and she didn't leave. She just sat by the window. And cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just soft tears, the kind that fall when something inside you quietly breaks. For the first time in years, she had no itinerary. No agenda. She picked up her journal and wrote, "I've spent so long telling the world's stories. Now, I want to hear my own." In astrology, there's a phenomenon called the Jupiter opposition. When Jupiter in the sky stands opposite your natal Jupiter, it's a cosmic checkpoint. For Sagittarius, it's not a time to expand outward. It's an invitation to come home. Not to the past, but to the parts of your soul you left behind on your way out. The middle-aged Sagittarius doesn't crave new lands. They crave silence. They crave the courage to sit still with questions that don't have easy answers. Lila stayed in that cabin for 3 months. No stories. No departures. Just forest walks, homemade soup, candlelight, and moon gazing. One evening, she wrote, "I used to think I loved adventure. But now I see, I didn't love adventure. I just didn't know how to stay. And that, dear one, is the shift." Healing for Sagittarius isn't about extinguishing the fire. It's about rekindling it, deeper, slower, wiser. No longer living like a restless nomad, but like a sacred pilgrim. Eventually, Lila returned to writing. But not travel blogs. She wrote soul letters. Reflections. Pieces of herself she'd forgotten. Every trip she took after that felt like a prayer. Not an escape. "I no longer write to tell the world's stories," she said. "I write to tell the stories I found, when I finally stopped running." Maybe you, the one listening, are somewhere in this chapter right now. Nothing excites you the way it used to. Nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels fully right either. You wonder, have I lost my spark? Has my youth faded, and taken everything with it? No. You haven't lost anything. You're being called. Called not to go backward. Not to go farther. But to go inward. Maybe the greatest journey of your life isn't one that takes you across continents, but the one that asks you to pause. To stay. To breathe into the questions. To find the horizon, not out there, but within your own heart. So if the path ahead feels foggy, unclear, don't panic. The universe is still walking beside you. Only this time, it's not leading you anywhere. It's teaching you how to stand still. And simply be home. There's something most people don't notice. Even Jupiter, the planet of expansion, wisdom, and faith, has moments where it turns backward. It slows down. Changes direction. Moves against everything we've come to associate with it. For Sagittarius, the child of Jupiter, this shift can feel unsettling. You were born with a fire that always pushes forward. You live to learn, to explore, to believe in something greater beyond the horizon. But then, sometime around your 40s or 50s, something happens. Jupiter enters retrograde, or perhaps stands in a tense position in your birth chart. And instead of showing you where to go, it simply asks, do you remember why you started? This is no longer a time for outward expansion. It's a time to gather inward. To look at the beliefs you've carried for so long. Which ones are truly yours? Which ones are echoes of someone else's voice? You might have believed, once, that freedom meant going far. Success meant achieving something grand. Love had to be wild, untamed, and full of fire. But Jupiter, when in retrograde, when calling you back, whispers instead. Freedom can also look like acceptance. Success might simply be living in alignment with your soul, even if no one understands. And the deepest love is when you no longer need to run. At this phase, Sagittarius doesn't run out of desire. They run out of fear of stillness. But here's the miracle. The moment you stop is the moment everything becomes clear. There's a lesson you only learn when Jupiter turns inward. Not all doors lead forward. Some only open when you're brave enough to go back. Back to the grief you never named. Back to the dreams you left behind. Back to the parts of you that got lost in the endless chase. I know, you may feel uncertain right now. Because the things that used to light you up suddenly feel dim. But that doesn't mean you're lost. It just means the map has changed. You are no longer guided by excitement. You are guided by truth. Try something simple tonight. When the world is quiet, sit alone for a moment. Look up at the sky, where Jupiter still glows in silence. And ask yourself, if I had nothing to prove, where would I truly want to go? You may not get an answer right away, but something inside will shift. Like a soft breeze brushing against your skin. Like a voice you haven't heard in years. Not a voice from the past, but a call from the center of your soul. And there, you'll realize something powerful. Jupiter never left. It only stepped back. So you could learn how to see your own light. You see, healing for Sagittarius doesn't come from new lands. It comes from the permission to stay. To pause. To be quiet without guilt. Because only in that quiet can you finally hear the voice of the universe. Not shouting from outside, but whispering from the one place you've avoided. Your own heart. And perhaps it is only when you stop going anywhere that you finally begin to come home. There's a truth that many of us, especially when we're younger, find hard to accept. Not every wound needs to be fixed. Some wounds just need to be sat with. No fixing. No pushing through. Just a quiet presence, soft, loving, and undemanding. For Sagittarius, this can feel almost impossible. You're used to movement. To doing something. If you're sad, you take a trip. If you're confused, you dive into learning. If you're hurt, you chase the next experience. But now, somewhere deeper in your timeline, the universe is no longer sending you outward. It's inviting you inward. You no longer heal by moving forward. You heal by sitting still. By allowing yourself to fully feel the one thing you've spent years running from. Stillness. And the humbling truth that not everything is within your control. This isn't surrender. This isn't giving up. It is something far more powerful. Acceptance. Acceptance that you're no longer who you used to be. Acceptance that not everyone will understand you. Acceptance that life may not follow your plans, and still, it holds meaning. And when you can sit quietly in that space, without doing, without escaping, something begins to happen. You start to hear a voice. One that's always been there, but buried beneath the noise of movement and motion. Now, with your soul quieter than it's ever been, that voice dares to speak. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a gentle whisper. I'm still here. And I'm okay. That voice is your soul. The part of you you left behind in the endless pursuit of somewhere else. In the healing journey of Sagittarius, there are 3 sacred truths. 1. You don't need to do anything, just be fully present. 2. You don't need to understand everything, just stay kind to yourself. 3. You don't need to see the light, just trust that it's coming. Imagine sitting beside a dear friend who's grieving. You don't rush to fix them. You don't fill the silence with solutions. You just sit with them, in quiet, loving presence. Now, imagine doing that, for yourself. Place a hand on your heart. Take a slow, full breath. And whisper gently, I'm here. I'm not leaving anymore. The moment you say that to yourself, the moment you choose to stay rather than run, is the moment your heart begins to open. Not to the world, but to you. To the parts of you that have longed to be held, gently, honestly, without judgment. You begin to forgive. Not others, but the tired, younger version of you. The one who wandered, who doubted, who hoped so hard and hurt so often. And slowly, stillness becomes less of a threat. It becomes a sanctuary. A shelter. A soft landing. A place to come home to whenever the world grows too loud. Dear Sagittarius, healing isn't about changing the outer world anymore. It's about understanding the sacred world inside of you. When you can sit, quietly, kindly, fully, in your own presence, you'll realize something beautiful. You no longer need to go anywhere. Because finally, you've arrived. And then, after all the miles, after all the journeys, fast, far, and furious, you realize there's one place you've never truly arrived at. It isn't marked on any map. It won't show up in a GPS. No one can give you directions to get there. Because that place lives within you. It's a place that doesn't need you to be better, or perfect, or wise. It just needs you to be present. To pause. To breathe, deeply, gently. You used to think light was something you had to chase. But now you know. Real light is what shines the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Peace doesn't crash in like thunder. It arrives like mist. Soft. Quiet. Unassuming. But once it touches you, you're never quite the same again. Dear one, we were never born to be perfect. We were born to be honest with our soul. So if you find yourself in this moment, where there's nothing left to prove, and nowhere left to run, know this. You are not drifting away. You are drifting closer. Closer to your heart. Closer to your light. Closer to the most grounded, gentle, powerful version of yourself. Let the silence walk beside you now. Let acceptance become the blanket you wrap around yourself at night. And if someday, your heart stirs again to move, then go. But go as someone who's already whole. Not running, but returning to yourself in every step. Because maybe the deepest kind of Sagittarius wisdom isn't learning how to fly farther, but learning how to stay. Stay with yourself. In unconditional love. And in a peace no outer world could ever take from you. And if you're listening to these words, perhaps in this quiet hour, alone in your room, with nothing but your breath and a flicker of something sacred, know this. You are not alone. There's another soul listening beside you. There's a light blooming now, not from the stars above, but from deep within. Your journey is not over. It's only just beginning. Not with motion, but with the most profound kind of stillness. You have returned. And you don't need to go anywhere else. Because you have finally arrived at the one place that matters most. Yourself.